GMGP, good morning, good people. Y'all could have been anywhere in the world, but y'all decided to wake up with us. You're sick. You're sick in the head. There's a lot of fantasy football shows out there, but I promise y'all, they not like us. Brock Bowers, you looked a little quicker than fast. What does that even mean? Redraft, dynasty, best ball, high stakes, we got you covered.
And that's MVS and Justin Watson.
With some of the dopest tools designed to help you cancel out the noise and dominate your leagues.
If there's a white wide receiver named Antoine, sign me up.
Maybe it's cultural. I don't know. In season or off season, rain, sleet, hail, and snow,
comma, semicolon, period, next sentence.
to bring you the most actionable and entertaining content on YouTube. You don't go buy the dip on the Titanic.
Quarterback that you love, D-Bro. One of the best values in fantasy football.
Prop bets with my man JRich.
Yes! Let's go!
So wipe the crust out of your eye, get you a cup of coffee. It's time to wake y'all asses up with Ray
And Jay.
in the morning.
My God.
How good is
Dude.
he? Get it? GMGP. It is Monday, September 23rd, 2024. Y'all decided to wake y'all asses up with Ray and Jay this morning, and we appreciate each and every eye, each and every ear, each and every listen, view, like, comment, subscription. We appreciate y'all waking up, having y'all a glass of coffee, a cup of coffee with us. We got a lot to talk about. We're almost a quarter of the way through the fantasy football season. Jay, week 3, damn near in the books. We got 2 games on tonight, Monday Night Football going down. But we got a lot to cover here from week 3. Baby, who we got in the building? We got Adam in the building, MV Prof in the building, Jay Jackson, Trip Crown. What's happening with you, baby? Salute Greg Oswald, Jordan Baker, Jacob Moon, Cold World TDE in the building. And my wife, she left me. JRich, I woke up to a cold big bed by myself. She dipped the hell off, went upstairs. Kids are off today, but she is in the building. Shout out to Mrs. GQ Sheeta Baddest. You see at 1908. JRich, we got a lot to cover today, baby. A lot of injuries, a lot of football stuff, and we're gonna talk about it today, Jay. We're gonna talk about it today. We're gonna talk about everything that happened, the narratives, the bigger question marks rolling into week 4. Make sure y'all pull up to my man Scott Connor show on the radio feed, Destination Dynasty. Dropped this morning. Good stuff there. JRich, how you doing, baby? How you doing this morning, big dog?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It was an interesting weekend. I told you pre-show, this felt like the regression to reality week in the NFL world and fantasy football. In a lot of ways, a lot of things we thought would happen didn't. Pretty much every high-scoring game wasn't a high-scoring game. The totals didn't quite live up. You know, the Dallas-Baltimore one kind of got there towards the end. But yeah, it felt very disappointing in a lot of ways. But this is what it's all about. It's about riding the highs and the lows of fantasy football in the NFL. And this is why you can't, crown the Saints after 2 weeks, and why you can't write the Giants off after a couple of bad weeks. These things are going to happen, the ebbs and flows of the league. And I'm excited to talk about all of it with you today.
Yeah, there's a lot of that to talk about. There's a lot of that. We had some rankings. We put our rankings out this week, so we're definitely going to touch on some of the big hits and some of the big misses that we had this week, Jay. But you see the dope drip. You see the gear. The hat is brought to you by New Era, man. Y'all got to get in the game, man. It's a new era over here at DD Fantasy Football. So with the NFL season popped off 3 weeks in, you got to get the official caps of the NFL sidelines, baby. You get those from New Era. This weekend's past matchups were packed, Jay, full of fantasy implications, and no matter what stars or teams you were rooting for, New Era had the gear that needed to keep you in the game. From classic fitteds, they got snapbacks, premium designs, and comfort. Let you rock your team's emblem and your team's city in pride, man. I see that Chicago Bears ad up there. We're going to talk about the Bears. We're going to talk about them and the Texans. But elevate your game day look now with the official cap of the NFL sidelines from New Era. And I got a lot of them joints in the background, Jay. But we had injuries galore, JRich, this NFL season. We also had some teams that we thought might be vying for the number 1 overall pick get some big wins this weekend. JRich, we're going to talk about those Giants. We got to talk about the Panthers, who we thought would be picking a quarterback, but they made a QB switch. That looks like they might win the damn Super Bowl with the offense they rolled out there this past weekend. Now, we ain't going to go that far. But when you're thinking about those kind of teams, Jay, we've been talking about, some of those bad teams picking a quarterback early. And I don't know if you saw it. I don't know if you saw, Jay, but I think the race for QB1 was locked
You
up this
declared it
weekend,
over?
Jay. I
You
think
declared
it's
it
locked
over?
up. In my opinion, you could love him, you can hate him, but there's no denying, JRich, there's no denying how freaking good Shedeur Sanders is. Shedeur Sanders, Colorado Miracle this past weekend. Did you happen to see it, JRich? Did you see
I
the
did see
Colorado
the
Miracle this weekend? I think Shedeur.
It was insane.
I think he locked it up, man. Best damn quarterback in the country, man. Best college quarterback in the country.
Prevent end of the game defense.
Here we go right here, JRich. Look at this. 4th down, 2 seconds left, rolling out to his left, in the lane, 50-yard Hail Mary to Legante Wester to go on to win this game. Colorado and Shedeur Sanders. Jay, what'd you think, man? Talk to me about the game, what you thought about the performance of Sanders, the Buffalo's team. Travis Hunter had another big one. Talk to me. What are your thoughts, Jay?
I mean, you just look at what he did on that play alone. It was everything that we talk about with Sanders, from his ability to manipulate the pocket, his ability to get outside the pocket, the ability to flip his hips, run in the wrong direction, to throw the ball down the field, to make an accurate throw under those circumstances. Like, we talked last week about how Quinn Ewers is a guy that we can see all those traits with as well. Outside of, I think, the mobility, Sanders is a little bit better.
Right.
And especially when you talk about playing under duress, Sanders is the best in college because he does it every week.
Best.
Even against Baylor, who isn't, phenomenal, but they're still a good team. They're still a quality opponent. Like, it's where you look at a quarterback and say, could he do it in the NFL? It's like, absolutely. He's doing things that most quarterbacks, even high-level ones, like, you're not seeing Carson Beck deal with the level of pressure that Shedeur deals with,
man.
even in one game all season.
You put Sanders in Georgia and put Carson Beck on Colorado, and you're not even asking a question if that dude's the number 1 pick. All these fantasy mocks throwing him at number 1 because they are too cowardly to put the players there who should be there. It should be Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss, Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers. Those are the 3 best and Cam Ward. Those are the 4 best quarterbacks playing right now. It's Cam Ward, it's Shedeur Sanders, Quinn is hurt, it's Jackson Dart. Those are the 3. Spare me the Carson Beck 101 talk. Like, I'm watching every week, Jay. I'm not buying it. Shedeur is QB1 in this class. If I had to pick an early front runner for fantasy football for 2, it would be Jackson Dart followed by Cam Ward. It's not Carson Beck, my guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's where, you look at those guys, and that was kind of my issue with Beck coming in, is like, if he's not going to be this prolific passer, which he's a good passer, but he's not going to be a prolific passer, doesn't project that way right now. Georgia, again, that offense doesn't ask him to do a ton. Maybe he can get better and throw more in the NFL, but if he's not going to be a prolific passer like we've seen in the past with the Joe Burrows, with the CJ Strouds, with what we expect from some other guys like Caleb Williams and all these other players, it's just not going to work out for fantasy. And even when you're talking about playing quarterback at the NFL level, there is an element, at least for me, where you have to have that big time ability to hit that ceiling in the NFL as well. So, you look at these guys, and Sanders, I think, has it all in a lot of ways. I'm so curious how he's evaluated through the process because, Ray, he's going to be scrutinized. You know that you're going to hear all these stories about Shedeur all offseason.
Bad guy.
About, bad guy, bad
teammate,
bad this, bad that. And I think a lot of owners are going to have to, that's going to play into their minds. And I'm curious who's going to have the stones to take him 101. And the question is, if it's the Panthers, do they do that? Because of all the reports of Dion and what he said.
The same people crying about Shedeur being a bad guy are the same people that had Malik Nabers as a 2nd or a 3rd round pick this time last year, man. Foolish non-ball knowers, Jay. But let's get to the NFL. Hit us with the awful injury news that we had this week to an awful position, a position that has just been wrecked from top to bottom. And we're going to get to one of them top guys here in a minute. But hit us with the injury news, Jay.
Yeah, so it was mostly pass catchers this week. No running back injuries, which is good considering how running backs are literally carrying fantasy football. But Sam Laporta suffered an ankle injury. He did try to return to the game, but was taken out because of his ability. He wasn't able to move as well as they thought. Trey McBride also suffered a concussion on the other end of that game. We'll see how he responds to that situation. If he practices and stuff like that, if it gets cleared. But honestly, with concussions, it seems like it's probably going to be at least a week. But we'll see how McBride progresses. Skylar Thompson suffered a chest injury after getting beat to shit all game long by the Seahawks. Adam Thielen on his touchdown catch also suffered a hamstring injury, which sucks considering how good that offense looked. Jaylen Warren was pulled from the game by the coaching staff over apparently not running smoothly, so I'm sure they saw something with his gait and wanted to make sure he was okay. So they're going to monitor him and see what his injury potentially could be and see if he's available for week 4. Justin Herbert re-aggravated his ankle injury and was removed from the game, at which point then the Chargers collapsed. And Taylor Heinicke got sacked repeatedly. And Devonta Smith also suffered a concussion in that Saints game on a really bad late hit. And Lane Johnson, the right tackle for the Eagles, also suffered a concussion. So the theme of this week is more ankle injuries and concussions. So Sam Laporta, we'll have to check on him, but mostly Trey McBride and Devonta Smith are the two we're really going to have to monitor, because with those concussions, it could be at least a week and potentially leading into the following week as well.
Did you see the Smitty play? Man, he got decapitated.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see it? He got crunched up in the middle.
Bad.
Yeah, looked pretty bad. Hopefully he's not out long. And on that, yeah, you talked about it. Lane Johnson also suffering a concussion. So not good from the injury standpoint from the Eagles, Jay. But I want to get through a lot of matchups. Any other news that you had? I had one other piece of news, Jay. You know, GQ. I am a proponent of all things MLB and all things baseball. And most notably,
really?
I talk about my oldest son, Jay. We follow his journey on this show. We got championship rings, game balls. But we're like the Shanahan coaching tree, man. I got another one, JRich. There's another GQ playing baseball. And my youngest, my baby, JRich, 4 years old, Ridgy Poo, my Ridge, was invited to play 6U coach pitch, first year, first game. He plays T-ball. They said, you know what, after you play your T-ball game, come up and play some coach pitch. You know what the big dog did with the bases loaded? JRich. JRich, this is bases loaded, second at bat, coach pitch. Look at that shit, JRich. Booms it, bases loaded, game-winning run. The only kid out there to get a hit off the coach, 4 years old. Look at the unit. Look at him, Jay. Look at that, JRich. That's my big dog. Ridge, GQ Garvin with his first bases loaded hit in a 6U coach pitch team. That is my 4-year-old hitting it out to the grass, Jay. So I got to give some air to the other. We're like the McVays, baby. We're like the Shanahan coaching tree. We just keep growing over here in Royce City, Texas. So shout out to my little big dog, Ridge, who got him a first hit, baby. First hit, Jay. But the hits keep coming for teams that play against Kansas City, because it seems like defensive pass interferences do not exist.
They don't call them.
JRich, let's get into the Sunday night game and talk about the fantasy relevant players, the big storylines rolling out of this game. Kansas City beats Atlanta 22-17. Big story, Jay. Big story in this one was our consensus wide receiver. Where did we have Rashee Rice, wide receiver 5 on the week? Rashee Rice went out there 12 for 110, 1 touchdown, 14 targets, was absolutely dominant. Travis Kelce, 4 for 30. Jay, we watched the game. You watched the game. We all watched the game. Travis Kelce looks very old, JRich. I don't know what else to say. He looks very old. You had him as your tight end 1 on the week. I was very much against that, JRich. I said, I don't think you want to go down that path. And he threw 3 games at 69 yards, JRich. And that's very ironic. Nice. 69 yards for Mr. Billion-dollar booty, Travis Kelce himself. Patrick Mahomes doesn't look like, I mean, they're winning, but he's not out there just dicing up defenses right now. Carson Steele got all the work on the Kansas City side of the ball, and Xavier Worthy, once again, was a very fast decoy. Talk to me, big fantasy takeaways from the Kansas City Chiefs side of the ball, Jay.
I think the Chiefs is really just Travis Kelce. You know, you talk about the running game. We were happy to see Carson Steele get the majority of the work. He didn't score, but I think 17 carries is very encouraging, considering we weren't sure whether he was going to split duties, be, more of the predominant rushing attack or what that case may be. But, Rashee Rice was dominant. He got 14 targets, caught 12, 110, touchdown, wide receiver 2 on the week. Travis Kelce, on the other hand, another 4 receptions, 30 yards, and I believe, it was split between the first half and second half was basically even, 5 targets.
Here, season highs. I mean, hitting season highs this week, Jay.
I mean, Ray, the problem is like, we talked about it off the top. Sam Laporta's hurt. What is it? And then Trey McBride, concussion. Like, you can't even really bench Kelce, because what are your options? But like, honestly, if you had another option, let's say even a top 8 option in fantasy football, like, would you bench Kelce? Because I'm in a situation now where you have to bench him, but the question is, who are you benching him for?
I don't know. I have no clue.
That's the problem. Yeah, like, there's no one to bench him for.
Jake Ferguson, please. I mean, anybody. I mean, here's the real problem with Kelce, dog. Bench him or not, the price that you paid for him, you're already screwed. You paid way more than the output that we're probably going to get this season. And this is just a stark reminder that Father Time is undefeated. As much as you want to keep they're just going to be because they always have been. Here we are. And he is clogging up a positional spot. But to your point, who else do you put in there? Hunter Henry, he didn't do shit this week either. Tyler Conklin, nobody was going to have the stones to do that. So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. I'll just say just very much limit your expectation for him moving forward. He looks very slow, JRich, and it is very clear that this offense is going to go through Rashee Rice. So here we are with the Kansas City Chiefs. I honestly don't know what else from a fantasy standpoint to take away. All the Samaj P. Ron shit people were pushing last week. Wasn't buying any of that. 3 catches, 15 yards, 6 for 25.
This is what you should expect this. 10 opportunities.
That's about what
right?
you're probably going to get from Samaj P. Ron. So let's stop hopium heroin taking that with him being anything more than what he was. On the other side, I thought Kirk Cousins played a lot better, Jay. It didn't really account for much, but he looked a little more comfortable, was pressured out the wazoo. Bijan Robinson couldn't get anything going on the ground last night. And through the air, they didn't even try to involve him, Jay. It was all Darnell Mooney. It was Drake London. And Kyle Pitts did have one long reception of 50 yards. So if you started him, you were happy. You got the 2 for 59. He almost scored a touchdown. Big takeaways from the Atlanta Falcons side of the ball, Jay.
I mean, Drake London, still the wide receiver 1, still very dominant. And then the other thing is that people tried to ignore him. They tried to write him off, but Darnell Mooney is a thing, and he's going to be involved in this offense. Like, it's where you look at, you could say we're right, we're wrong all the time. But the one thing that I think we talked about incessantly is that Kyle Pitts, yes, should be a factor in this offense because he is a wide receiver. But if he's not a wide receiver in this offense, the next guy up is Darnell Mooney. And in this offense, it doesn't really matter whether you look at Kevin O'Connell's offense, Sean McVay's offense, now Zach Robinson's offense, even if you want to go to Matt LaFleur's offense at times, like the wide receivers are heavily utilized and they always use multiples of them. It's never just going to be Drake London. It's always going to be a mix of Darnell Mooney. You see Ray McLeod's really annoying for fantasy right now because he's getting involved. And then Bijan, it's tough, man. Like they clearly were selling out. Well, I wouldn't say selling out, but they were trying to stop Bijan first and then force Kirk Cousins to pass and blitz the hell out of him. And it worked. But, I think there's better days ahead for Bijan. But I think the number one takeaway has to be Darnell Mooney and just how good he's been so far and how he's going to continue probably to be great for fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it on the wide receiver usage show. His Trinity score, his usage in the offense can't be ignored. He's being utilized just as much as Drake London in this offense. So, and this is something I'm going to hammer home. I'm going to do another usage video this week, Jay, but you cannot ignore those guys. You cannot ignore, like, he and London are literally being asked to do the same type of stuff. And Darnell Mooney's involved in this offense. London is involved. Those are your two primary options. Bijan, it's like Algier's still a thorn in his side. Bijan didn't average a lot last night. I don't know if they sold out, but they definitely did a good job of containing him last night. Bad performance.
And
he did get in the end zone to kind of save the day. But I think with you, the big takeaways, Mooney cannot be ignored. You're still going to start Kyle Pitts for the hopes that one of those big plays happen. And like you said, Jay, I think Rashee Rice at this point, I mean, he is on another level, JRich. Rashee Rice is playing on another level. He's playing fast. He's playing like an elite option at the wide receiver position. And my question to you, Jay, is just how high do you think he should be ranked moving forward, week in and week out? I mean, is he are you talking about a potential top 8 kind of guy from here on out for Rashee Rice?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about Rashee Rice is while he doesn't have that, alpha profile where he's playing outside and he's getting these deep targets, like he's definitely involved enough to where you could say he's basically I don't want to say a better Amon St. Brown, but he has a better quarterback, right? And he's in a better offense. But when we say Amon St. Brown, who's wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, 5 most weeks, Rashee Rice is the same guy. He's doing the same type of things, running the same types of routes, and he's getting in the end zone. And if you're asking me who has a higher touchdown ceiling, it's Rashee Rice because he has the better quarterback.
I
right?
mean,
So I think, we always tout Jamar Chase and Jefferson and, Marv and Nabers, I'm sure, is already in the top 5 for a lot of people because they're outside, alpha, dominant wide receivers. Rashee Rice is the same thing, but he's on the inside. And the concerns for Amon-Ra is really the touchdowns. But I think when you talk about Rashee Rice and Amon-Ra, they should be almost synonymous at this point. And especially with how well Rice is playing in this offense, it seems like he's basically unchallenged, and those targets are going to come every single week. So I think in terms of rankings, probably top 5, top 6 every single week for Rashee Rice.
That's a great segue into the Detroit Lions because Amon-Ra did score a touchdown. So all of your fears and panic, you could at least hold those for one more week, Jay, because Amon-Ra did get in the end zone. The Lions won 20-13 over the Cardinals. Amon-Ra balled out. Marv got in the end zone. We saw David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs be really good for the Detroit Lions. And the Lions told Jared Goff, you're not throwing the ball 55 damn times like you did last week. We are going to establish it. 43 rush attempts for the Lions for 187 yards. David Montgomery got in the end zone. Kyler Murray on the other side of the ball. We talked about this on the show. You were like over Kyler Murray's 30.5 rushing yards. He coasted past that, I believe, in his first offensive possession of the game.
Yeah.
Kyler was still a little shaky at the quarterback spot. They got to figure something out offensively. Like, what is the identity of the Arizona Cardinals? 1 week, it's all James Conner, and this week, 9 carries for 17 yards. Absolute letdown in fantasy football. But from a positive standpoint, Amon-Ra 7 for 75. He got it done. Sam Laporta came back on the field, what looked like to be a bad ankle injury. Hopefully this isn't too long of a thing, JRich, for Sam Laporta. And J-Mo was not a part of the game plan this week. Only 3 targets. So this was one where it was Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Brock Wright was the second leading target getter in this game. It was a very weird game. If you watched it, it was very clear that all the Lions wanted to do was run the damn ball. They knew that they could run the ball on Arizona. They played good defense. Marv, again, started off really hot, and then nothing later, had a lot of targets. What was your big takeaways from this one, man? Jared Goff, right under 200 yards. Again, these QB output performances, 199 and 2, 207 and 1. And this is who we're arguing and debating about as a top quarterback. Like, as much as we're shitting on the tight end position, QB ain't been much better, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what Goff did last week, and he really struggled. I think Ben Johnson had the perfect game plan to come back, establish it, and especially when you talk about using your best players. And this is where smart OCs and smart coaches do these things, and it sounds so simple. But when you have a dominant offensive line up against a defense that can't handle with them, you have David Montgomery, who's a hammer. You have Jahmyr Gibbs, who is lightning quick on the outside and between the tackles. And then when you have to pass, you get it to your best playmaker in Amon-Ra St. Brown. It doesn't have to be that difficult, but some offenses struggle to do the simple things right. And for the Detroit Lions, it's run the hell out of the ball. You saw it in the Rams game. When they needed to win the game, what did they do? They ran it every single play. They didn't throw it even once. And so while this is a game that I think they had to win and they had to get on track, the best thing they did was they kept Goff from making too many mistakes, even though he still threw a pick, and they leaned on their running game. And I think this is where, when you talk about dominant outside or wide receivers, these types of game scripts happen, and that's where the best player will always perform. But when you're touting Jameson Williams every week, these are the things that are going to happen in bad game scripts and games where they want to run the ball. So I'm not overly concerned with J-Mo, but the best players got the ball, and that's all they needed to win the game.
That's the take, Jay. A couple of people asked me, Ray, are you concerned with J-Mo? No, because his usage score just shows he had 3 targets. He wasn't used. He's not the primary target. He is the secondary wide receiver option on that team. So when they don't need to throw the ball a ton, it's probably all going to go to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you're hoping he gets a big play. He's the quintessential case of a lot better for best ball, so you don't have to worry about the variance in the weeks where he's just not involved. He'll have his, but there's no doubt it's Amon-Ra St. Brown is still at the top of the pecking order for anybody that thought otherwise. And I think to your point, Jay, they want to establish it. Running the ball with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs do a lot of things for that team. It helps the defense out. It establishes that identity. It opens up the play action to allow those deep crossers and some of the play action to hit Jameson Williams down the field to be open. This was the perfect game plan for Detroit. Good for Gibbs, good for Monty, and good for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Those were the people who produced for us in fantasy from that side. Arizona side of the ball, again, Connor not involved, 9 carries. This was just it's a weird game plan because they should have leaned on James Conner a little bit more than they did. Michael Wilson got involved, 6 for 64. I'm at 8 for 64. Greg Dortch had 3 for 35. And Trey McBride, we drafted him early. FFPC main event. We took Trey McBride in the freaking second round. He's been just as big of a disappointment this season as some of these other players that we've been talking about. Any concerns about McBride moving forward? I am concerned, Jay. I am concerned that this offense looks a lot different this year, and he isn't as involved. Even prior to the concussion, he wasn't doing a lot prior to that.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of discussion, and you saw both sides of it is, well, Marvin Harrison Jr. is coming in this offense, and all the targets are going to go to him, and, what happened? He got 11 targets. And I think part of it, too, is, you look at the strength of Detroit. They do have pretty decent linebackers, I think, can cover Trey McBride, but yeah, the week-over-week usage is definitely concerning, and Michael Wilson's involvement, while clearly he deserved it and earned it, he got 9 targets, 8 receptions, he was very efficient and good in this game. The bigger point that I think you made is that James Conner was not involved in this game plan enough. When a team only scores 3 points in the second half, Detroit didn't score any points in the second half, and it was basically a 10-point game for the entire second half until the field goal that Arizona got. So you see this happen a lot in game plans in the NFL. It's you're only down 10 points. You don't have to throw the ball 30 times to win the game. You look at what the Rams did, and we'll obviously get to them at some point. They did not stop running the ball. They continue to stick to their game plan. And that's where good OCs don't make this mistake. They think you're down 10 points. Oh, we got to score. We got to get back in the game. No, you're not out of it. You just need to slowly piece it together. You have an entire half to make it happen. And I think that's why they failed, is that Connor's been so great and they went away from him and they lost the game because of it. We know that Kyler's good, but he hasn't shown the ability to go out and win games often enough to where you can lean on him. I think you look at him and Jalen Hurts and you say, well, Jalen Hurts has kind of shown he can go out and win a game. It may be ugly, but he can do it. Kyler hasn't really done that yet, and I think they needed to use Connor a lot more than they did.
Jay, you talked about a good offense, understanding that they need to continue to run the ball, even when the game plan seems like we need to be throwing it, right? We need to run the ball. Can I interest you on a team that ran the ball 75% of the time, Jay? If I told you this team would have 12 receptions not from one player, not from Rashee Rice, for the entire game, their pass catchers, tight ends, receivers, and running backs. If I told you this team would have a combined 12 receptions, Jay, would you think that team won the game?
I mean, maybe. But probably not. Not in today's NFL.
Probably not, right? If you only caught the ball 12 times, right? You're probably not winning the game. Jay,
probably got
my Dallas Cowboys found the way to get it rammed right up the backside 75% of the time. 45 rush attempts by the Baltimore Ravens. Derrick Henry, who I had as my RB2 on the week, JRich, and I told you on that running back ranking show.
You did.
I said, this is get right Henry game. Dallas cannot stop the run. They are I think they are the worst rushing defense
They've got to be the worst
in the NFL right now. Derrick Henry with 25 carries, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns, and just for the hell of it, he gave you 3 more points in PPR leagues because he caught 1 for 23. Lamar Jackson, 14 for 87. He scored a touchdown while throwing for 1 touchdown and only 15 pass attempts. On the other side of the ball, Dak Prescott was incredible. 2 touchdowns, damn near 400 yards. Dallas, What did I say? Jay, what did I say at the beginning of the season? That I wouldn't be shocked if this team finishes 3rd in the NFC East, misses the playoffs, and has a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. They're currently 1-2. They have no running game. They can't stop the defense. They've got a wide receiver who is acting like C.D. Owens. Jamar, you don't have that anymore. It's C.D. Owens, mad for whatever reason. He just got all this money, and the body language is pathetic. He's always upset. I don't get it, Jay, but this is a team right here. The Cowboys, you cannot start any running back. I don't care if it's Rico Dowdle, Ezekiel Elliott. They're trying to run Deuce Vaughn and Kevontae Turpin. You can't start any Dallas running back, and I don't want any pass catcher outside of Jake Ferguson and CeeDee Lamb. None of them. Brandon Cooks, worthless. You don't know when to play Jalen Tolbert. This is bad, JRich. I am very, very concerned about my boys, but I'm not shocked, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, we can start with the Cowboys because Dak was honestly pretty damn good considering the circumstances. When I saw this game starting to play out, I was like, man, the Cowboys may be headed for the Deshaun Watson paradox after paying Dak all this money, but their team is absolute shit.
Stop it.
Hey, just let me get through it.
Going.
But Dak came back and he was great. The key is Jake Ferguson, right? You talked about it all last season about how good Jake Ferguson is, how he's going to be utilized in the offense, and that was 100% true. And you saw it in this game. He was back. The offense, took a while to get going, but once it got going, it was going very, very well. It was CD, it was Jake Ferguson, and a splattering of all the other players on the team. But for fantasy, I don't know what to do because this team is clearly not good enough to win anything. They seem like 500 is a destiny for them at best. But, Ray, I think the bigger concern when you talk about the Cowboys is not just their lack of balance, but defensively, they're also really struggling. And so when you talk about not just a team that can't score that well and can't perform on offense and can't play defense, it's a recipe for disaster. But I think the number one question I have for you is actually on the other side of the ball is, one, Greg Roman's probably smiling in LA right now after what he saw the Ravens do on offense. All these carries, 45, 274, 3 touchdowns. But the number one question is Mark Andrews. 1 target, and I don't know if this is true. I believe I saw this on Twitter. Man. 4 routes run, Ray. Now, to be fair, they only threw the ball 15 times. But what the hell do you do with Mark Andrews?
He and Isaiah Likely combined 1 reception, 4 yards on 2 targets.
Did you know Isaiah Likely is still the tight end 5, and he has 3 receptions for 30 yards in the last 2 weeks, and he's tight end 5.
It's an awful position, Jay. It's an awful position, and I'm watching Baltimore. They almost blew this game. They were up 28-6 in the fourth quarter. They almost blew this game. Lamar was a little pissed at the end. You could hear him say, he said it in the interview, we cannot be letting off the gas like this. They need to have the phone, be on the phone right now with Mark Davis or whoever the owner is of the Raiders and get Tay Adams out of there. We'll talk about them. But from the Andrews standpoint, how can you have any confidence playing him? How? Outside of you just praying to God that he gives you what he did back in 2020, 2021. Like, how can you start him, Jay? How do you feel good starting Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, any of them right now, Jay? If you paid for any of the tight ends it is not screwed. Good right now. Laporta, Kincaid, McBride, Kelce, Andrews, Kittle, Ingram, Njoku, it's over. It's not good right now. It is, you are up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. Without a paddle, Jay, not good.
Yeah, I mean, the only one who's actually performing, and he wasn't even highly drafted, is Dallas Goedert, who's now tight end 1.
Oh, yeah, no one wanted
season,
Goedert, me
right?
included. I don't want him. He's just Dallas Goedert. 2,000 yards in a game, man.
170 yards. It was, but we'll get
102,000 yards.
But
crazy.
I will say about Andrews, I would legitimately, and I'm not even bullshitting, I would start just about anybody over Mark Andrews. We talk about Kelce. Who do you start over Travis Kelce? And I don't really have an answer for that because I think you still have to start him.
Season, Jay. Kelce or Andrews rest of the season?
Smash Kelce. Easy. Not even close. I think he's that far gone at this point. I think he is. Because he still has Isaiah Likely there, who is a problem.
Andrews is done. You think Andrews is toast?
I mean, Ray,
I'm not going that far, man.
He only has 12 and a half fantasy points. I'll give you the names of guys who have more fantasy points than Mark Andrews. Will Dissly, who only has 7 receptions. Tucker Kraft, who basically only had a quarterback for 1 week. Johnny Munt, who only has 29 receiving yards. Elijah Higgins, who only caught 4 passes. Jordan Akins filling in for David Njoku, which is only a 2-week thing. Travis Kelce, who obviously scored more points. Foster Moreau, who has 5 receptions. Like, it's bad, but, it's just, like, I just don't see a world where it makes sense to start Andrews because he already has to deal with Likely, who's there, and going to get opportunities. And this team can't throw the ball anyways. So it's like, I understand that you feel the need to start Andrews, but there's a lot of guys, like, who are probably even on waivers who are just as good as Mark Andrews week to week.
You had him as tight end 7 on the week. I had him as 4. You were a lot lower on him.
I wanted to believe.
You had him at tight end 7.
I wanted to believe, man, and I was looking stupid.
Yeah, Jay, I'll just say that it's CeeDee Lamb, it's Jake Ferguson, or bust for Dallas. Do not start a Dallas running back. Like, just flat out. You cannot start a running back the same way. The only receiver that you can probably confidently start and you don't feel great about it week to week is Zay Flowers from the Baltimore side.
What the hell happened to Zay Flowers, man?
It has just been a season so far. But we got a lot of people in the building. Time to run them likes up. We'll get back, and we're going to talk about Mr. Wide Receiver 1, Brandon Ayuk, right after the break. Welcome back in. We appreciate everybody who woke up or is tapping in this after the fact with myself and JRich. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Like the content. Really helps us grow. We're trying to build this thing up, so we need your help. We appreciate all the support. Subscribe to the podcast feed. Subscribe to the channel. JRich, the failed wide receiver 1 heard round the world this week in an epic collapse. The San Francisco 49ers 24, the Rams, who stood no chance this game. No Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nacua, no offensive line, nothing. Right? 27-24. It was a home game for LA, but if you saw the pictures of the crowd, it was a home game for the 49ers. It was a sea of red at SoFi Stadium. But JRich, all these fantasy sharp, what do I know? What does old DD fantasy football know about wide receivers, Jay? Well, this week, there was a clip that you pretty much got on me for my ranking of Brandon Ayuk, and I did not have Brandon Ayuk as a top 10 option, a top 5 option, a top 15 option. He was barely a top 20 option on the week, Jay. You said I was crazy. Let's roll the footage real quick, JRich. Let's roll the footage.
This is so petty by you.
What do you mean it's petty? Jay, hold on. What do you mean it's petty, Jay? What do you mean?
I thought you actually clipped that from the ranking show.
You said you thought I did? Oh,
I thought you did.
Why
Yeah.
do you hate Brandon Ayuk?
I don't hate Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk needs to be utilized more, and this is his opportunity to do that. But so far through the season, it seems like Jauan Jennings is being just as involved in the offense as Brandon Ayuk. He's got to turn it up. I need to see the usage increase. I'm not trusting it until I see it. It seems like Jauan Jennings is just as trusted as damn Brandon Ayuk in this offense right now, Jay. So I don't feel great about jamming them in there. JRich, where are you at?
Yes, sir.
Where are you
Yes,
at,
sir.
Jay?
Yes, sir.
Listen, I don't know a lot. I've never claimed to be the sharpest or best fantasy strategist on the planet. I don't give a shit about any of that. That is not my lifelong dream to be viewed as the best fantasy analyst on the planet. But I know a little something about football, Jay. And as we discussed in that video, and as I've told people, we have the best wide receiver opportunity utilization tool in fantasy football, period. And what did that tool tell you, Jay? And what did I tell the people last week? I said, I don't know about Brandon Ayuk as some top 5 option because Jauan Jennings is being asked to do just as much wide receiver shit as Brandon Ayuk. And I said, I don't have him as a top 5 option. I don't have him as a top 10 option. I'm concerned about the usage and utilization of Jauan Jennings. And what did Jauan Jennings go out there and do, JRich? What did he do this week, Jay? He's out there looking like Terrell Owens, the good version, back when he was playing with Jerry Rice, jumping over people, 11 catches, 375 yards, and 3 touchdowns for freaking Jauan effing Jennings this week. And literally, I told people, if you trust the Trinity, this will make you. We had him ranked inside of our top 30, Jay. Jauan Jennings, talk about it, Jay. Talk about your process of Brandon Ayuk fading the tool that I've created. You're on the show with me all week, and you don't even use the damn thing that told you probably shouldn't be as bullish on Brandon Ayuk as all these other great fantasy minds are telling you, Jay.
All right. So first of all, this is why you need to produce your own show, people, because you can do things like this. And when someone disrespects Alvin Kamara, I can't return the same courtesy. But to be fair, did you rank Jauan Jennings at all? Even though you knew the matchup was great, did you rank him? Because I don't know if you did. I ranked him because I knew that he was going to be involved in the game. Now, to your point, I believed that Brandon Ayuk would be the primary option. Obviously, that was not the case. But the reality is, Ray, this is a process over results situation because Jauan Jennings was the wide receiver 1 by over 16 points on Rashee Rice. 11 receptions, 175, 3 touchdowns, and a lot of it felt like it was in the first half because in the second half, Brock Purdy's back there running for his life, and somehow those Rams DBs are holding up in coverage, and I don't know what the hell was happening, but Brandon Ayuk was horrible. He needs to figure his shit out because when Peyton Manning got on him on that on Monday Night Football, we said, you know what, Peyton, that's a little harsh. And I was like, Peyton, you know, that it's a little critical of Brandon Ayuk. But every fucking week, man, this guy continues to play like ass. And it's like, at some point, you need to do the job you are being paid to do, and that's be a competent wide receiver. And he hasn't shown that yet, but Jauan Jennings was phenomenal.
Here's the thing. Like, no, we didn't think he would have 11 for 175 and 3, but it is football is not that complicated, folks. You follow the usage. You just screwed. I'm seeing fantasy analyst JRich just throwing. How on earth, Jay? Look, we got to get off of this. We got to. How on earth can we? You got people out here that were touting Jacob Cowing. What? What are we doing?
Love me some Jacob Cowing, though.
Fire up that Jacob Cowing. Jauan Jennings is no good. Yet, we've got the goddamn thing that's telling you that, no, he is being asked to do the second most wide receiver stuff that yields fantasy points on this team, but yet start Jacob Cowing. What are we doing? It doesn't have to be that complicated. Who's the team throwing the ball to week? We got a thing that shows you a little dot that shows you who's the ball getting thrown to. Just follow it, Jay. It doesn't happen every time, right? But Amari Cooper was in the shadow realm for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden he explodes out of nowhere. But you just pulling shit out of the air is insane. Who I checked notes, 0 targets for one Jacob Cowing in this matchup. Here's what it is, Jay. The Darnell Moonings, the Jauan Jennings of the world, the Quentin Johnstons, while we may not like those names, while they may not be popular names, they may not have this long-term dynasty value, which, again, check out Destination Dynasty from Scott Connor this morning. I've talked about this for a long time. There is no such thing as dynasty value. There's not. It's a week-to-week game. Go check on JSN's value today. It was sky high last week. Go see what it is today. There's no such thing as dynasty value. You're chasing the week-to-week opportunity. You're chasing the week-to-week usage. That's all we're doing. That is all we're doing. I thought Brock Purdy was really good in this game, Jay. I see a lot of people giving Purdy shit. And sure, he did miss Brandon Ayuk on a wide open, what should have been a touchdown.
Yeah, that would have been a big play.
I say it's a 50-50 shot. He would have caught the damn ball in the first place. But neither here nor there. It still wouldn't have been better performance than what Jauan Jennings did. Jordan Mason, a little bit of a letdown this week. We had him ranked very high aggressively inside the top 3. The Rams, I want to give all the credit to the Rams, who nobody gave them a shot in this matchup. Tutu Atwell led the way. I don't know if my girl Joe Sanchez is in the building, but Tutu Atwell, my girl, I thought about you all day on Sunday because I know she loves herself some Tutu Atwell. 4 for 93, almost got in the zone. Kyron Williams, absolute monster as always. Remember all those silly fantasy analysts that said don't draft Kyron because Blake Corum's going to take his job. There's a couple of y'all jokers in the chat right now. Who swore up and down Kyron was a bum and Blake Corum was going to take his job. You know what the Rams are doing? They're treating him just like Sean McVay did Todd Gurley. He won't get 80% of the work again. Nah, he ain't. He's getting 100% of it, JRich. Sean McVay loading that Kyron Williams up with all that work. You know what he is, Jay? Give it to him. Moo, bell cow, Kyron Williams. Jay, what are your big takeaways from this game? These players, do you want any Rams pass catchers? To me, the answer is no. I said that. I don't want any of them. I said that last week. I don't want any of them. No Parkinson, no Robinson. Tutu played well. You want Kyron Williams, the bell cow, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just the question now is Jauan Jennings and how involved is he going to be? Because, I mean, if Debo misses more games, I think that's probably your key, right? If Debo's out, it seems like Jennings is going to be in that over-the-middle, intermediate type of role that Debo's so great in. And I think even if Kittle's back, I'd probably still consider starting Jauan Jennings because he's going to be the primary wide receiver target. Kittle's great, but I think having both of them is great for the offense. And you can tell that Purdy needs it. But, Ray, I got to ask you, this is going to be a big topic now because they lost again.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy. Would you pay him?
Absolutely. He was lights out, dude. Dude, he's out there ducking under damn tackles, spinning around, running all over the place. I thought he was fantastic yesterday. Yes, he missed a throw, but so does everybody missing throws left and right. That's the football game that we play. Absolutely. I think
he's worth it too. He was pretty good, but
he was not the reason why they lost. He wasn't the reason why they lost that game. Jay, let's talk about a quarterback who he's been asking for it all season long, and finally Brian Flores gave it to him. CJ Stroud's been begging for some picks this season. Brian Flores and the Minnesota Vikings obliged. Minnesota is 3-0, Jay. And I don't think we have more egg on our face than this preseason take right here. This might have been our stone worst so far, that the Vikings would be 0-17, picking at the top. They're 3-0, led by the NFL passing touchdown leader, Sam Darnold. What?
Mm-hmm.
Sam Darnold. I mean, MVP/comeback player of the year, outduels CJ Stroud, who threw 2 picks, got sacked 4 times, definitely looked uncomfortable by the defense that Brian Flores was throwing out there. Stephon Diggs came back from the pass, led the way, 10 for 94 on 12 targets. Nico Collins, again, second up. A lot of people tell Tank Dell over Nico. It's not happening. It's not happening. He's the third damn option. Stop it. I don't care how many fucking routes he runs if he's not being thrown the ball. It's Nico, it's Diggs, then it's Dell as the clear 3 in this offense. Nico Collins also had like 13 red zone targets at the end of the game and couldn't catch one of them. I think they threw it to him all 4 downs at the end and he couldn't convert any of them. But on the Minnesota side, Jay, Sam Darnold doing enough to keep this team afloat. Justin Jefferson, while he hasn't had this monstrous performance, every week he is just Mr. Reliable, Mr. Consistent, Mr. Top 12 wide receiver. Think of the world where we were fading Justin Jefferson for Tyreek and Chase and all these players, and people didn't want that Justin Jefferson, and he has just been as consistent as they come right now. No Joe Mixon seemed like it really hurt the Texans in this matchup. Cam Akers scored on a short receiving touchdown, but other than that, he was pedestrian, as was the entire Texans offense. Any big takeaways from you from this game? Both sides of the ball. Jalen Naylor scored again, almost had 2, but it was a pick play on Aaron Jones, who had a big day as well, Jay.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway continues to be these OCs, man, like these good OCs that continue to get it done. Sam Darnold, we did hear this a lot, actually. If you were really paying attention, there was a lot of people who said that Sam Darnold was a much different quarterback in San Francisco and learning from Kyle Shanahan and developing, and that's why there was a lot of interest in him in the offseason. It wasn't just like people were saying this out of their ass. There was a lot of GMs and coaches that were talking about what Sam Darnold could be in the right offense, and I think you've kind of seen it already. We wrote this team off because it's going to be J.J. McCarthy's season, and Sam Darnold's no good. And yeah, he could absolutely, come back down to earth and just kind of be a decent quarterback, but he's playing so well right now. He's playing at a level that we didn't expect from Sam Darnold, and part of it is the balance. They're doing it with basically just Justin Jefferson and a bunch of other pieces. Aaron Jones was great in this game. We saw like the OG throwback Aaron Jones, who's running for 100 yards, catching passes, touchdowns through the air, and doing well on the ground. My biggest takeaway, honestly, with this game is I don't think I'm ready to start other Vikings, but I think we can say that starting Sam Darnold is okay. Like, I'm not trying to say that people should be out over their skis and start him every week. But I think at this point you can say, like, you can start this dude. He's probably throwing for 2 touchdowns. He's going to be a very efficient. He's kind of like Brock Purdy from last season when he's not throwing for a lot of yards. But the other one I wanted to talk about in terms of Houston's side is not so much the game itself, but you need to target slot receivers against Minnesota because they blitz a ton and they play a lot of too high. And we saw it with Wan'Dale Robinson on the Giants catching a ton of passes, and then we saw it again this week with Stephon Diggs. If you have a slot receiver who is pretty solid against Minnesota, that's a player you want to target weekly and start because we've seen it time and time again. I wasn't so surprised with Nico. He's the downfield guy, but they covered the downfield very, very well. And then Cam Akers was fine. But CJ, he hasn't been good enough this season. I don't know if it's Slowick. I don't know if it's CJ. But Ray, talk about CJ Stroud and what he did this week.
I think I think he's been pretty good. I mean, he hasn't been 100% lights out. I think he's been fine this season, Jay. It's second year, right? Second year, there's tape out on you. I think they're playing Stroud a lot differently. That I haven't seen him get heated up as much as Brian Flores did yesterday in a long time. So maybe it was just one of those things where you're facing off against a great defensive coordinator. Jay, the Trinity scorers are updated, and my God, Malik Nabers. Jay, it's bonkers. Jauan Jennings is off the chart. I don't think I've ever seen a score this high. No joke. I didn't think it could go above 10. It's 10.57 for Jauan Jennings.
He broke the scale.
He has literally. He has broken it, JRich. I don't even think people can see.
We can't see it. No, we can't see it.
Yeah, he broke it. He broke it. Jauan Jennings 10.7. 5.7, Malik Nabers 9.71. That's just week 3. Incredible usage. Incredible usage. We'll just say that. I've got to look more. I can't even comprehend that score right now and what he did yesterday for the 49ers. And if you played him, if you started him, which I saw Scott Connor throw that tweet out there, show me those rosters where you started him. And I love to see there's like 50, 60 replies where people are like, yep, had to play him and got all those points. Jay, let's wrap up talking about just that stud that we had just mentioned, Malik Nabers, and what he's doing as the Giants got their first win on the road against Cleveland. What a disgusting loss for the Browns in this matchup. Daniel Jones was, shall I say,
dealing, man.
Dealing. I mean, Danny.
That first half.
This was the guy who GQ was pumping up last season, not the guy that played all the other games that wasn't good. It was this version of Daniel Jones right here. Malik Nabers also threw the ball in this matchup, but Singletary had a touchdown, 65 yards, could have scored again, but slid at the 1-yard line to run the clock out.
Yep.
Nabers, another 12 targets, 8 receptions, 78 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Wan'Dale Robinson got back involved. Good performance for him, 7 for 61. Singletary was involved through the air as well. Amari Cooper, we talked about at the top of the show, he got back on his horse, man. He got back, 2 touchdowns, scored late. They were playing catch-up. Deshaun Watson, 2 touchdowns. The final stat line looks fine, but the QBR of 27, he was sacked 8 times, hit repeatedly. They had to bring Jameis Winston in for a minute. Jay, what is the biggest takeaway from this one? And I think it starts with the big dog, Malik freaking Nabers, Jay. Just what are we doing, and how good is this young man, Jay?
I mean, Malik Nabers is phenomenal. I don't think there's any other hyperboles we can say about him to this point. This route in particular, going inside and wrapping around the corner to go into the corner of the end zone, go up, elevate, turn around, catch it with your feet in bounds. That's why he's such a highly touted wide receiver and why for fantasy he's going to be great no matter what. And that's where, I don't like how people kind of confuse my dislike for Nabers as a dislike of talent, because that's not the case. But it's also crazy that Cleveland went into this game and they allowed Daniel Jones to go 19 for 21 in the first half, and Nabers was 7 for 70 and 2 touchdowns. You thought that first touchdown would have been enough for them to say, hey, maybe we should actually cover him. They continued to not bother, and they reaped the results. It's hard because this game was a tale of 2 halves. The first half was phenomenal from the Giants, and the second half was really bad. And so you have to wonder, one, did Cleveland practice? Did they game plan? Did they do anything for this game? I don't know. And then the second question is, what the hell do you do with Malik Nabers? Because at this point, Ray, he's unattainable. I can't think of anyone who would trade him away at this point. He's wide receiver 5 or wide receiver 6 in KTC, only behind Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Marvin Harrison Jr., Amon St. Brown, and Jamar Chase. And I could argue if you're a Malik Nabers owner, I wouldn't trade him for just about any of them.
Jay, I sent him a text this morning. It's a hell of a game, man. Hell of a game. Said, appreciate you, big homie. Appreciate you, big aunt. You know, it's my dog, Jay. He's a beast. I try to tell folks long time ago, he's an absolute stud. Right now, Malik or Marv, who do you want? Rest of the season, who would you rather have? Come on, Jay. This is the you and D, bro. Who would you rather have? No, who would you rather have?
I still want Marv. I still think Marv is going to be the better receiver for fantasy football.
You have got to stop quadrupling down. I'm looking you in your eye. Look at me in the camera.
But Ray,
look in the camera.
Ray,
look in the camera. Look in the camera. Just look in the camera. Let me talk to you.
I'm looking in the camera.
Be honest. Who would you rather have right now, Malik Nabers or Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I want Marvin Harrison Jr. I do. I want Marvin Harrison Jr. He's on the better team and the better offense. You saw exactly what can happen when you choose to actually cover Malik Nabers. He didn't do anything in the second half because they actually chose to cover him. He is a phenomenal talent, but literally they didn't cover him in the first half. And it's nothing against Malik Nabers. He dominated all game. But in the second half, he only caught one pass because they actually chose to cover him. It's the whole reason why I faded him in the first place.
Wide receiver 22 on the week, JRich.
I did.
Wide receiver 22.
Because I thought they would cover him. All they had to do was cover Malik Nabers, and they probably would have won the game. But they're like, why would we do that? He's only a rookie. It's like, dude, he's fucking killing it right now. Washington is one thing, but why is Cleveland not covering him? It makes no sense.
Are we back in on Coop? His Trinity was very low. It was like the lowest.
Amari Cooper.
Yeah, we back in on Coop now. Led the way, 12 targets. I haven't looked up his score. Judy had 7, so it's not going to be awful, but Coop's going to jump up from the bottom of the pack up to the front. Are you in on Coop? Are there any Browns you want to start? I'm not starting any of the running backs. Foreman 2 carries this week. Ford awful. Is there anything from Cleveland that you want to start? And be quick so we can go to a different game.
I think you start Cooper. He's a wide receiver too because of Deshaun Watson, but you saw the talent on full display in this game. He's very good, very good.
Well, let's talk about talent on full display, Jay. Talent on full freaking display. We're not getting out of this show without talking about it, Jay. Talent on full display. Andy. Mack Truck Dalton, JRich. Andy Dalton, what is he, the only QB this year? The only QB this year to have 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 25-plus completions in a single game. The only QB on the season. And the Carolina Panthers went out there and put the absolute foot up the backside of my Las Vegas Raiders, Jay. It was not a good weekend for old GQ. Andy Dalton, 3 touchdowns, QBR of 87 on the week, JRich. Chuba Hubbard
Bryce only wishes.
Chuba went ballistic on the ground, through the air. Deontay Johnson said, thank you, football gods, for giving me a quarterback that can throw a 12-yard corner route. He smashed for fantasy football. Hell, even Adam Thielen got in the mix before being injured with a long touchdown. Jay, the other side of the ball, we talked about your calls, probably the stone worst GQ call of them all. Devontae Adams should go out there and smash. He did not. Jacoby Myers, touchdown, 7 for 62. Trey Tucker, 7 for 96 at a touchdown. Maybe Adams went over 100. 4 for 40 and a dejected-looking Devontae Adams, which called Antonio Pierce to hit the podium after the game and talk about some of his players making business decisions in that game. This seems very bad, Jay. They pulled Gardner Minshew. Aiden O'Connell looked 10 times better in limited duty. This was the Panthers, Jay. This was not the Ravens. This was not the Bills. It was not the Detroit Lions. This was the Panthers that the Raiders got foot put in them. Zamir White, once again, looking like a colossal bust from a fantasy standpoint. Brock Bowers, my tight end one on the week, busted. This is what you get when you believe in the Raiders, even against the Panthers, Jay. What are the takeaways from this one?
I don't think you can take away anything other than that maybe Dave Canales is actually a pretty decent coach maybe he's a pretty decent OC. You know, everyone was getting on him in pregame and all this stuff all week. And it's like, well, yeah, I don't think the Raiders are great, but I think it's pretty clear that there was a lot to get done with this Carolina team. And all it took was them benching Bryce Young to look like maybe they have the players in place to be a competent offense in the NFL. And defensively, they stepped up, only allowed 22 points. It's crazy to me this team beat the Baltimore Ravens because they looked awful. Like they came back and they beat them. And, you know, while I like Trey Tucker, we talked about him in preseason, how he's looking really good, had chemistry with Gardner Minshew, Jacoby Myers got involved, Devontae, I mean, woof. He didn't really play overly well. And
that's the takeaway.
Wasn't overly involved.
With who do you think Pierce was talking about? Was it Tay Adams?
I don't know. Maybe it was
There's
defense,
a lot of players
though.
on the field. You can't just put it all on Devontae.
Because
right?
defensively, they did nothing. Like, it felt like he may be talking to the defensive line outside of Max Crosby. Like, they brought in Christian Wilkins, and they really didn't do anything. Like, it was really just Crosby trying to do his thing out there. Like, you can't have the Panthers run for 100 on you. Like, Chuba Hubbard's great, but we didn't expect this. All they did was put in Andy Dalton. Now they got 100-yard receiver, career game for Deontay Johnson, 100-yard rusher, which I believe is the first time the Panthers have done that since 2022. Dave Canales said in his post-game speech, like, it's ridiculous. But yeah, Antonio Pierce has an absolute shitstorm on his hands right now, and I don't know how they fix it. And if I was projecting right now, I'd probably say he's fired in the next 5 to 10 weeks. I don't think he's going to be able to right this ship at all. Like, we've seen interim coaches come in.
I've seen a lot of Raiders people, Jay. I've seen a lot of Raiders accounts talk about the shine of all that players coach is worn off. They say they've got a terrible OC and a terrible head coach. I'm not in Raiders Twitter land. I don't know.
It's not good, man.
I'm just a messenger,
stinks.
Jay. Not good. Let's
they
talk about
need
another
a full
team.
reset.
Let's talk about a team who was not good. I think this was one of the highest over-unders on the slate. 48
we were all
and a
over
half,
this game.
Jay. My goodness. I mean,
we
we were all over Philly
all
and New
over
Orleans, and it was a wet fart. It was a wet fart. Jalen Hurts, dreadful for Jalen Hurts.
Are you ready to say that he stinks now?
No,
Last week you weren't there.
No. It was a piss poor performance from Jalen Hurts. Saquon Barkley was a freaking monster, and this is why, again, I just don't understand how people thought that he was going to be any worse in Philadelphia than he was the Giants. Like, football doesn't have to be that complicated. Saquon was a stud, 65-yard run, did it all, gave you some production through the air as well, just the receptions. Devontae Smith, we had him ranked aggressively as a top 5 option on the week, and he was well en route to doing that prior to the concussion, 7 for 79. So it's funny, he kind of gave you what Devontae Smith always gives you, around 15 fantasy points per game. Dallas Goedert went nuclear, 10 for 170. On the other side of the ball, the week we pump up Rashee Shaheed, he goes absent. AWOL. Goose egg for Rashee Shaheed. Had 2 touchdowns clank off his hands, Jay. I don't care that they were contested. Should have had at least 2 catches for 2 touchdowns for
Derek
Shaheed.
Carr needs to get the ball out there, though.
Derek Carr was bad.
He
was bad in this one. Kamara was all they had, and he was inefficient. Chris Olave was good, though. We did talk about Olave. His Trinity score was right in line with Rashee Shaheed. It was tracking well last week. He was just below that threshold. Flip-flop this week. So now Chris Olave should be close to, or if not, the front runner for usage in that offense. He definitely performed for you if you started him. What takeaways do you have from this one, Jay? You say you don't like Jalen Hurts. A.J. Brown, I think, is still another week or 2 away. Smitty, we don't know how that's going to progress with the concussion. It's going to be a heavy dose of Saquon Barkley if they're going to be down Smitty, Lane Johnson, A.J. Brown going into their matchup next week. I don't know who they play, but heavy dose of Saquon.
Yeah, it'll be Saquon. I think the more concerning thing, like you said, is this coming week because the Eagles are 2-1, and this week they have the Buccaneers on the road, which, to be fair to them, that's a revenge game because they lost that game in the playoffs last year. but it's going to be a lot of Dallas Goedert, which I didn't expect. We know that he's good, but we didn't expect this level of great from Dallas Goedert. Now, to be fair to him, Kellen Moore drew up the perfect play late in that game, crossed up 3 defenders, and dude was just running wide open. You talk about Derek Carr, him kind of coming back down to earth a little bit. This is expected. The Eagles defense did play much better than I thought they would, honestly. Like, credit to them. I've been trashing them the first 2 weeks of the season. They did play pretty well. I thought Carr could have played a little bit better. He missed a couple throws. He threw short on a lot of throws. But ultimately, that's all you can expect from Derek Carr. He's not going to be as perfect as he was in the first 2 weeks. Olave was really good, though. I really was encouraged what I saw from Olave, and this is what we needed to see, and I expect him to play well. The biggest takeaway, though, has to be Barkley. Like, he's running back 1. I ranked him as running back 1. He's the best running back in the NFL. I don't even think it's really that close, and he's going to be heavily utilized. I'm surprised they're not using him, or they couldn't use him that much in the passing game, considering they're down A.J. Brown. But, I mean, if he's going to bust out a 65-yard touchdown run, I don't really care. He was unreal in this game.
It was incredible, man. Absolute monster performance. Vintage Saquon looked like the early version of the New York Giants version of Saquon Barkley on that. And that 65-yard touchdown run, Jay, came immediately following the Smitty concussion. As soon as that play happened, Barkley probably went to Sirianni and said, "Give me the damn ball." Took it 65 yards. How are you feeling about Shaheed moving forward, Jay? This is your boy. When I finally bought in, he let us down. How we feeling about Shaheed moving forward? Just a blip on the radar, or is this something where you think, he still had 5 targets, which was second on the team behind Olave.
Yeah, the good thing about Shaheed is that when he did get targeted, it was mostly down the field, right? And those are going to be, low percentage completions, especially when Derek Carr's not putting it on the money. A lot of them are underthrown. One of those targets was like in double coverage where he just threw it up because he was getting pressured. So, we talked about with Jameson Williams. He's not a stud. He's not the guy who's going to get the ball no matter what and produce for you. He is that lower tier who can have phenomenal games, who can see great usage. But the thing about Shaheed that I like a bit more than JMO is he's still getting targets. It converted on nothing this week, but he's still got downfield targets, still near the red zone, still in the end zone. So I am still encouraged. I think he's still going to be really good. But clearly, Kubiak needs to figure something out because they tried to do the same thing they did the first 2 weeks, and the Eagles were ready for it, and it didn't work. They have to adjust now and find different ways to utilize these players.
Yeah, I like it, man. I see CJ said Shaheed is a boomer bust, sexy Gabe Davis, and still alpha there. Joe is still saying, don't trip. I think it's fine. I think, like you said, Jay, he's in that same role. When both are on the field, both are playing, much like Amon-Ra is probably the lead guy. He is the lead guy. Chris Olave is probably still that, but I do believe that Shaheed is a lot better than a 0-for-0 performance. You get what I'm saying? He'll be back and get things rolling. So maybe an opportunity, if you believe in the offense and believe in the utilization, to go out there and go get you some Shaheed on the low, Jay. Let's where do we want to go before we get out of here? Let's talk about Caleb. We got to talk Caleb. Can we talk Caleb real quick, Jay?
That whole game as a whole? Disaster.
Let's talk about it, Jay. The Bears and the Colts. Colts got a dub. Got their first win of the season. Bears fall to 1-2. ARich, once again, Jay, and we both were very low on Anthony Richardson in our ranks this week.
Dude. Ray, I'm almost out, man, and I'm being dead ass. Like,
no, don't say that, Jay. Talk about it, JRich.
There's too many times where you're like, what the fuck is this guy doing? I literally watched him roll out to the right. He thought he was playing basketball. He did a hop step, threw the ball across the field, 10 yards over his receiver to an interception. Then he rolls left in the end zone. He thinks he's Joe Milton short throwing these guys 5 yards away, throws a pick. It's like, come on, man. I understand that he doesn't have a lot of experience. I understand that he needs to grow and he needs to play. He needs all of these things. But it's just like, it literally feels like you have the most unprepared, lacking fundamentals, just freestyling it out there type of quarterback. And I don't understand how the Colts are going to succeed unless he just reels it in. I'm honestly at a loss for words. Some of the throws this guy makes, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, every time ARich is on my screen when I'm watching Red Zone, it's him doing something ridiculous. Good or bad, but there is way too much bad mixed in with the good right now.
I mean, I think Marcus hit the nail on the head right here. He said JRich is fed up. Never heard him let fly this much. Like, Jay, you are telling us how you feel, but I will say I believe this was his 7th career start this week. I got this. Here's the bigger problem is this. We knew what he was coming out of college, right? That he was a QB who started, I believe, a grand total of 13 collegiate games at Florida, didn't throw the ball a ton there, supremely athletic, came into the NFL. In the first 4 weeks, he completed 2 games. In those 2 games, I believe he ran a lot and scored a lot of fantasy points and didn't finish 2 others. So we're talking about a player who is truly in his 6th or 7th career start. Look at how shitty Caleb Williams has been. And I know he threw for a lot of yards last night, and it was in that garbage time, gotta have it, nothing else to do but throw the ball. This is part of it. And we talked about this last week. My bigger issue with the Colts offense is the fact that they're not running Anthony Richardson. 8 carries for 24 yards. I know they want to protect him. I understand that you have to have your quarterback there long term, but he is not the type of quarterback. You tell me the Colts throw the ball 20 times, like you've got to run ARich. He's got to have more than 8 rush attempts, and you just have to live with what happens. Hopefully he can protect himself, play the game that he's played his entire life, and just go out there and be free. But having him drop back and trying to survey a damn defense, it's not going to work. They got lucky in this one, Jay. They got lucky in this matchup versus the Bears. They got the dub. Anthony Richardson definitely has to play better. And for fantasy, he is absolutely not returning the type of value that you invested because you drafted him to be a QB1. And Richie said it. I can't start the guy right now. I don't know what I'm going to get. And what's so head-scratching is he makes some beautiful throws. That throw to Alec Pierce was a dime. And then he does that thing where you talk about in the red zone, rolls out to the left and just throws it right to the defense. He's got to play better, Jay. This was both QBs were stinky in this matchup. And Caleb's final numbers look much better, right? 33 for 52. So we forgive all because he scored his fantasy points, 2 touchdowns. He scored his points, so we will forgive. They can't run the ball. They cannot run the ball. That guy, David Montgomery, probably would have still looked good in Chicago. Swift can't do anything. Roshan Johnson is very slow. It's Caleb. It's almost like USC. Caleb Williams are bust. And in this one, Rome Odunze got loose on 11 targets, 6 for 112, no Keenan Allen. Cole Kmet, who everybody thought was dead, 10 for 97 and a touchdown. DJ Moore could have had a bigger game, but 8 for 78. So from a fantasy standpoint, the top guys
worked out.
They produced for you. But Caleb Williams was not good. Anthony Richardson was not good. Jonathan Taylor, very good. Michael Pittman, those guys, like you just can't start them, Jay. You just can't.
Yeah, Pittman, again, nothing. Like, this guy was getting, 9, 10 targets a game last year? He was basically Deontay Johnson last year. Now he's in wide receiver purgatory. Odunze should have had 200 yards. Caleb, I don't know what this guy's doing, man. Odunze is literally running wide open all over the place. And Caleb's like, damn, I missed you. Sorry, bro. Sorry, man. I missed you. I'll get you next time. And Odunze, like, it's funny because I think it was in the first quarter, probably like his 4th or 5th pass. And I'm like, oh, man, Odunze's dad's going to be on Twitter in 5 minutes after he missed that first open play. It's always going to be a volume game with Caleb. He struggled, but I did talk about how the books did see some hidden upside in him this week, and he did throw the turnovers, but the yards were there, the touchdowns were there this week, so he was fine. The question, Ray, is Odunze. What are you doing with Rome Odunze right now? Because, man, he looks fucking good. Like, he looks really good, and it honestly feels like Caleb's holding him back a little bit. And if Caleb can be better, Odunze could be a top 24 wide receiver, even with Keenan Allen potentially
his
there.
Usage, I believe, after week 2, he was like 5th in wide receiver rookie usage from the Trinity standpoint. So he's being used in this offense. So this is one of those things where as long as Keenan Allen is out, he should continue to get fed and to get opportunity. We'll see what happens when Keenan Allen gets back into the matchup. But from an opportunity standpoint, you got to love what Rome Odunze is doing. You've got to love what Rome Odunze has done so far. 6 for 112, continuing to be involved in the offense. I'll check out the score a little later today. I think the bigger problem is the rushing attack is just bad. They can't run the ball, Jay. They cannot run the ball.
Yeah, I mean, you saw that speed option, right?
Last action hero.
You saw that speed option.
Last action hero doesn't like that I call your name. If you don't like it, hit mute or get the hell out of the stream. You think I give a shit about you thinking that I'm going to say Jay's name? I'm going to say it. So if you don't like it, get out or hit mute. Where we at next, Jay?
I mean, can we talk about how good Matt LaFleur is? Because I feel like I say it every show. Like, he is the best coach. Maybe not in the league, but
Matt LaFleur, coach of the year, right now.
I'm sorry, it's LaFleur.
Tomlin
it's
or
not
LaFleur.
It's LaFleur.
Tomlin?
I don't care.
Over Tomlin?
I don't care. I don't care what you think you know. I don't care if you think I don't know ball. Matt LaFleur is the best coach in the NFL right now. He made Malik Willis look like the best quarterback in the, like, it's just ridiculous what this guy does. He's got nothing. He thinks that he can just throw anyone out there. He drafts the receivers in the second round, third round, fifth round. Oh, Dontavian Wicks needs to start. Boom, 80 yards and a touchdown. Like, I understand that people don't want to hear it because I always talk about how much I love Matt LaFleur and I think he's an amazing head coach. But to what he did, this is a Titans defense that is allowing the fewest yards in the NFL, period. So they're not a bad defense. And he made Malik Willis look like he was Justin Fields in college. He was playing so well. Like, all credit to Mike Tomlin.
Did you see the
Justin
graphic?
Fields has been really good. What?
Did you
I don't
see
think
the
so,
graphic of Malik Willis basically talking about the development in Tennessee versus the development in Green Bay? And he hadn't been there, but
he's been there
for
3 weeks.
So
man.
I'm just like, you've been there for a month, so I don't know how much But coaching matters. Coaching clearly matters. Mike Tomlin, Kevin O'Connell, Matt LaFleur, to have Green Bay 2-1 when a lot of people thought after that Philadelphia, when Jordan Love went down, that it was over for the Green Bay Packers.
2-0 with Mike Willis. What? Come on. Like, yeah, the Steelers are playing great, right? They are playing great. And Kevin O'Connell is, like, he's number 2 for me. Kevin O'Connell and Sam Darnold is just ridiculous.
Where would you put Tomlin in? You got to give Tomlin some respect, though, too, because they're doing it without even a lot of – it's the defense.
But they already had a good defense, you know? Like, they are playing – I honestly, I don't want to discredit Tomlin, but you have to give some credit to Justin Fields for one, because he's playing really, really well. And it's not that he's doing anything wrong. It's just he's not making the stupid mistakes. And maybe that is coaching. And maybe that's Arthur Smith a little bit as well. And maybe it's Mike Tomlin and just, again, nurturing the kid who desperately needed it. But man, the things I'm seeing from KOC and Matt LaFleur is just next level. Putting up tons of points with nobody.
The Panthers play next week? Yeah, I'm just if Malik Willis is if LaFleur has the confidence to say Malik can get us one more week, let's not rush Jordan Love back. Who do they play next week, Jay? And while you do that, I'm gonna
Ray. Prime time, baby. This is a 1 p.m. showdown. Where is it? It's in Green Bay. It's a divisional game. It's the Minnesota Vikings. The Packers play the Vikings. Yeah. Oh, my goodness. This is going to be a game. Like, this is going to be a smackdown for the ages. Holy, go. All we're doing is talking about Kevin O'Connell, Matt LaFleur, how good they are. They're colliding. 1 o'clock.
Okay.
It's going to be awesome.
Jay, let's finish up. 2 more. I was going to save a couple. Let's get these last 2 out of the way, Jay.
Yeah.
Bo Nix.
Dude.
Bo Nix on the road. No shot. No passing touchdowns. 0. No passing touchdowns yet. Bo Nix was the best quarterback on the field by far. Jay, the moment we jump on the Baker Mayfield train, 7 sacks, 1 pick, 10.1 QBR. Now, Chris Godwin did get in the end zone to save us. We had him ranked as a top 10 receiver. Really 6 for 53, 1 touchdown. Mike Evans didn't do us anything. We were very bullish on Chris Godwin, not as high on Mike Evans. Bucky Irving looked like the best running back in the backfield. I know Rashad White. Running the ball, he looked really good. But on the Denver side, Jay, they ran the ball 28 times. Bo Nix was effective with his legs, got in the end zone. Cortland Sutton finally was just targeted like the only guy that knows how to do anything. Jordan Humphrey had a couple of targets as well, but it was Sutton, and it was Bo Nix in this one. Javonte Williams didn't do anything, fumbled the ball in this matchup. What are your takeaways from Tampa Bay, who turned out to be a little fraudulent at 2-0 record, ranking them high in the power ranks? Little fraudulent. Are you worried about Tampa Bay? You still feel good about Chris Godwin? How do we feel about Bo Nix and the Broncos?
So on the Tampa Bay side, I'm very worried, right? I talked about this week 1, and people kind of called me a hater, but they dissected Washington, and we've seen it time and time again, and you're going to see it tonight. Just wait until Joe Burrow throws for 400 against the Commanders, and you shouldn't be shocked to see that. Baker looked great in week 1. Phenomenal. Week 2 against Detroit, not so much. Week 3 against Denver, not so much. And so that's where you talk about this Tampa Bay offense. They have Chris Godwin, which is great. They have Mike Evans, which is great. But if this offense can't get going unless they're playing a team like Washington or the Rams or a really bad defense, it's clearly a bit of a problem. So while the first week, like week 2, he struggled, and we were like, okay, hopefully they get it right against Denver. That didn't happen. So going into week 3, you have to wonder, like, what is this team? Because they play the Eagles. So how do you think he's going to play against the Eagles this week? Probably not very well, considering what we just saw from them on the road against New Orleans. So I do have concerns about this offense. I think for fantasy, though, you're probably still going to start Mike Evans. You're probably still going to start Chris Godwin. And then the running game is in flux because you don't really know who to start there because Rachaad White's so shit. But on the Denver side, if Bo Nix is playing like this, he's basically a startable superflex quarterback because 50 yards on the ground, a touchdown. This is where Bo Nix's dual threat ability is good enough, even if he doesn't throw for a ton of touchdowns. So I think he could be okay. I believe he was like QB 10 on the week so far. He was right in that same range as Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones threw 2 touchdowns. So again, it's can they continue to do this, and what does this team look like? But maybe Bo can be all right for fantasy, but I'm not trusting him for like my actual dynasty teams or long-term.
Tyler Beatty, 9 for 70. I don't know when that came. I admittedly did not watch a ton of the end of this game, Jay, but is this anything? Tyler Beatty batty, 9 for 70. I mean,
maybe. Javonte getting 5 carries is something. Like Tyler Beatty drastically outproducing. And I think the scary part for me is like, I don't think Sean is going to hesitate to bench Javonte, right? Because there was already some rumors
what happened when he fumbled the ball. That's pretty much what happened.
And is he going to get that job back? Because Sean Payton's like he's
a running
intense,
back,
right?
so he's going to play. He's going to play.
I'm concerned, man. I'm concerned. We weren't starting him anyways, but I mean, Jaleel McLaughlin saved his day with that rushing touchdown, which was a sick play by him, to be honest. Outside of that, I mean, it's really just Sutton kind of little resurgence there. Chargers, Pittsburgh, Ray? Talk to me.
Chargers, Pitt. Let's wrap up with the last game. Chargers, Pittsburgh. Steelers 3-0. The Chargers lost the game and potentially lost Justin Herbert as well. I don't know for how long. He got sacked, came out of the game, I believe, aggravated that ankle injury. He didn't do a ton prior to the injury. He threw 1 touchdown on Quentin Johnston, 2 catches, 44 yards. He got in the end zone. Ladd McConkey was hyper-targeted 6, all things considered in this offense. Hyper-targeted 6, but 3 for 44 for Ladd McConkey. Once again, the only 2 pass catchers that if you were going to start anybody for some strange reason, those are the only 2 that you want to start. On the other side of the ball, I thought Justin Fields played a good game. Sacked a couple of times, but he did not turn the ball over, did not put the ball in harm's way. Got his ball to the playmaker, got the ball to the playmakers, Calvin Austin, big catch and run. George Pickens did sort of what George Pickens does, led the way in targets. And Najee Harris continues to just be a hammer to move the ball down the field. It was inefficient, but 18 carries, 70 yards for Najee Harris. Also caught 5 passes, so if you started him in fantasy, you didn't get a 0. Justin Fields, probably sort of the talk of the hour and where he has this team. How are we feeling about Fields in fantasy? We probably want to see him run a little more. He did rush one in, threw that ball to Calvin Austin. I don't know where he finished on the week. What are your takeaways from this one, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, Fields was right there with Daniel Jones, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Justin Fields. Like, they're all in that 18, 19-point range, right in the top 10 or close to it. The counting visually is I'm struggling a bit.
Right.
But he's right there, right? Top 10, top 12 quarterback. And like to your point, if he ran a little bit more, he'd be even better than that. The bigger thing is he's actually supporting pass catchers, which was a surprise. We expect them to run the ball a lot, and they didn't really do that. Only 31 total attempts between all the different running backs and Justin Fields, and he threw the ball 32 times. So good balance, 50-50 basically for those two, for both run and pass. I think this is a trend, man. Like we talked about how if Fields gets this job and he plays well, he can probably start the whole year. And at this point, Ray, what are the chances they go back to Russell Wilson?
No, there's no way. It's 3-0. There's no way, Jay. There's no Russell. Russell Wilson is the backup quarterback.
32.
He's the backup quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Fields, he's not doing a ton, but he's also not turning the ball over. Go look at his passing chart. Nothing in the middle of the field. It's outside, it's sidelines, it's out routes, it's go routes, it's protecting the ball. The Steelers are 3-0 with one of the best defenses in the league. There's no need to mess this up. Are you buying any Calvin Austin? 5 targets in this one. Are you buying into Calvin Austin? Not yet.
I mean, if you want to, if the price is all right, I don't hate it. This is everyone was saying Roman Wilson this, Roman Wilson that. And what do you know? It's Calvin Austin instead. The slot option.
Got hurt in the end of training camp, and that pretty much derailed everything. QJ scored again. Trust it, Jay. Are we trusting?
Right.
It's not enough volume.
It's not just enough crazy, volume, man. He just continues to score, and that touchdown. Oh my God! Like, what were they doing on defense? He's just running wide open.
Here's the reality is there's not enough volume. So sure. If you had to start him, he's one of the 2 receivers that are involved. That's really the analysis. If you have to make a decision, you start QJ or you start Ladd. If you're in that predicament, they're the only 2 receivers who are being asked to do things that are going to score you fantasy points. And good for QJ. If Herbert were healthy this year,
Herbert,
I think it'd be
he could be held out next week with the re-injury to his ankle.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough to really grade him when you don't have a consistent option at the quarterback position, but when given opportunity, he's not giving you 0 points, which is more than you can ask for players right now. J.K. Dobbins didn't do very much in this matchup. Yeah. The Steelers' defense was just too good. This was the lowest over-under on the slate. It was either this one or the Panthers-Raiders.
Like 36.5 or something.
35.5, and it went under that. I mean, 30 points in this matchup. So you're talking about no kind of offense really anywhere. So if you got any production out of this game, good for you. You talked about it. 2 games tonight. Washington at Cincy, Jacksonville at Buffalo. Jay, any kind of high-level takeaways or thoughts before we get out of here on those 2 games?
I mean, Jamar Chase was our wide receiver 1 for both of us. If he doesn't smash this week, Ray,
or is,
I don't know what to say, man. I think Burrow's going to have a big game. We'll see if T. Higgins gets involved. We haven't seen any reports about T yet, but I expect him to be active. He practiced all week, so he should be playing. But we expect to see a lot of Jamar Chase, and we'll see how Daniels plays, because I thought that the Bengals defense has played much better in week 2 than they did in week 1, and I think they may give Daniels some fits. So hopefully he plays pretty well. But expecting the Bengals to win big in this one. And I expect Buffalo to win big too, because Jacksonville stinks right now. Like, do you think ETN can have a big game? Expect anything from Brian Thomas? I'm not really expecting much from either guy. The question is if Lawrence plays bad and they lose again, then what are we doing with Trevor Lawrence? Because T-Law has been pretty bad, as you talk about almost every single week. Yeah, Ladd is not making it. But
you are
Palmer
going to
wasn't
win a
active.
case. You are going to win a case. Josh Palmer doesn't even play. You are definitely going to win.
Yeah.
You were going to win. What was that, $100 or was that a case? Was that a hundo or a case? Either way, you're going to win that one.
We can do both.
Both?
Why not both? Why not both?
Damn, both. All right.
Yeah,
all right, Jay.
Let's get it done.
Hit the music. Let's get out of here. Hour and a half show. Let's get out of here.
I will say, Ray, you talked about it a lot on this show, and the people need to understand. You just got to trust the Trinity sometimes. You just got to trust the Trinity. And the big thing here is you talk about how you'll do a usage show, but the most important show in all of fantasy football is your exclusive patron-only show. So go to ddfantasyfootball.com and sign up on the website. See you every single week. Ray will give you a 1 hour, 2 hour, however long the show goes on the Trinity, going through every team, every game, every player until it's finished. And it is the most vital show in fantasy football. So go to ddfantasyfootball.com and sign up today to get access to Ray's Trinity show, which is Tuesday evenings every single week.
And I'm looking at it right now, Jay. There are some. Here go your leaders in usage. These are all the players that are above the low-end wide receiver 1 threshold. You got Nico Collins, Justin Jefferson, Chris Godwin. A.J. Brown is still there after 1 week. Rashee Rice, but you know who the leader in usage and opportunity is this season? The leader, numero uno in the NFL, Jay. Malik. It's
got to be Malik.
Malik Nabers, Jay. Malik effing Nabers. Just start him. Just start him and rejoice. Start him and rejoice. Matchup doesn't matter, man. Jay.
Matchup proof
Browns.
Malik.
Matchup proof Malik Willis, man. We appreciate everybody, man. We had over 500 people in the stream. Hit that thumbs up button, like the content. JJ. See you on Wednesday, baby. Let's go.